a little bit. This is written by an MD who's been doing, well, most people know about divers. They dive down, and if they come back up too fast, they get something called the bends, right? The nitrogen or some of the gases come out of the blood, and it doesn't, if they come up too fast, they can get in real trouble. And so and people were dying of this until they figured out what the cause was, and then they developed these containers and they jammed a whole bunch of air in it. And so it's basically sticking somebody inside a really highly inflated balloon, and it shoves oxygen into their system. All right. And so what happens when you shove oxygen into the system, you're not then limited in your healing by the amount of oxygen that your blood can deliver. All right. And so then it can accelerate the healing from, well, everywhere in the body, top of the head to the tip of the toes. Now, many kids on the spectrum have all different causes of why they're on the spectrum and why they're symptomatic, right? But what this doctor was saying is that, I think he said like 90% of the kids that he's been treating, he treats conditions across the board, and you can write down his name if you want. It's Paul Harch, Harch. And he's got a large, and he's an MD, and his passion is working with kids on the spectrum. And he's got lots of stories online, and you can see lots of the case reports that are pretty miraculous or seemingly miraculous. And one of his points in here, because he couldn't, people were asking, why is it that you're getting such a consistent amount of benefit across the board when there's all these different causes for the different autistic and expression, whether it was Asperger's or autism or ADHD or ODD, and that you're getting just a consistent 90%, I think that's what it was really high percent change. And he was realizing that it's not due to a fixing of the original cause, but it's from a secondary cause. So when there may be damage in the brain somewhere, so damage in the brain anywhere then interrupts the electrical signal that comes through that area and goes everywhere else. So then you've got this potentially vast downstream effect of an original cause. And that's what the hyperbaric oxygen is supposed to address, is if you will, the grapes that are kind of like dying on the vine. If you can get the blood flow back into those areas, you can start to regrow the nerves and regrow the blood vessels that were dying because of the original cause. Then you actually start to turn on, it's like 8,000 genes, it's like 8,101. I don't know who's counting, but it was a lot. And so you're turning on, like half of those are pro-inflammatory genes that turn inflammation on, so it turns them off. And then the anti-inflammatory genes, it turns those on. I don't know how they're counting those, but somehow they are. So this is, this book I can pass around if anybody's interested. It's called The Oxygen Revolution. And I'm a big fan of less medication, the better. That's, my own kind of common sense thing. My dad taught me when the light bulb is out, or you flip the switch and the light doesn't go on, you don't go digging right into the walls and the wire. You check the light bulb first, right? So just for me, that's kind of my common sense approach. My own personal story is about 25 years ago. I was driving back to Eastern Oregon from a job east of there, and I hit some gravel on the side of the road, and I had just pulled back onto the freeway from my rest stop, and I was a 24-year-old kid. I didn't have my seatbelt on yet, because that has to be done in the first 10 minutes of the drive, not exactly at the beginning. Hit some gravel, and then my truck started fishtailing, and I wasn't able to unfishtail it, and I went through the windshield. I don't remember any of this, but I went through the windshield, the truck landed on me, the truck kept flipping, luckily. Didn't want to stay on me, and it just left me flat on the road, and it kept flipping, and so luckily there were ambulances that came within a half an hour, because it was way out in the middle of nowhere.
Way out in Eastern Oregon. There's
way out in Eastern Oregon. Right, so the cop was going, I guess, 140 miles an hour to get to me, and then the ambulances got to me, and then they took me to Baker City. Anybody know where Baker is? Yeah, it's a little tiny thing. So they got me to Baker City Hospital, and they're like, nope, we can't deal. So luckily there was helicopters in bed at the time. They picked me up, took me over to the trauma center. Am I talking fast enough? To the trauma center in Boise, Idaho, and luckily I'm all for the right provider for the right situation, and that was the right provider for the right situation, because my lungs were exploded, and they had the machine to plug all the tubes in and to paralyze me so I wouldn't fight it, because I don't like being in hospitals, apparently, because every time I'd come to, I would try to pull all the tubes out and run. And my parents got the call from the doctor that said you and your husband should get on the plane right away, because he might not make it through the night. And that 25 years still gets me choked up. I don't want any mom to get that call. And I made it. So they were the right providers, and I was happy about it. So And that's one of the reasons why I have the hyperbaric oxygen chambers, is because my spine at one point got smashed by a truck, and it's got some degenerative habits. And from reading the research on this stuff, it's really good with old traumatic brain injuries. It's amazing with arthritic conditions, autoimmune conditions, and kids on the spectrum. They see amazing changes with these kids, and these are all different, vastly different diagnoses. But there's the through line there is there's an original cause, and then there's a lot of downstream effects and more rapid degeneration in the body that then is addressed by hyperoxygenating the body. And I inflated one back there, so on your way out, feel free to step around the side. You can peer in there, because I got a couple of them. First and foremost for me to get in, so I can keep myself healthy, and then I make sure that we've got them here for the rest of the patients. So and there's no side effects. It's just the only side effect is anybody who's got some sinus stuff, and like if you go up in an airplane and you can't pop your ears, then you don't go in there that day. But I don't have 100% oxygen being inflated in there, and so it's just in there. So.